Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be building a professional login page in Flutter from scratch. So as you can see over here, we'll be creating this UI page together, and it has smooth animations, proper validation, as well as social login options, and it also follows all the modern UI principles. So whether you're an intermediate or a beginner Flutter developer, this tutorial will teach you valuable techniques on how you can build your own apps. So let's get started. So the overview of what we're going to be building today is that we're going to be building a clean modern UI login interface with email and password fields over here. Furthermore, we're also going to be doing real-time form validation with helpful error messages, and then password validity, and then also we're going to be remember me checkbox and forget password link. And we're also going to be loading states with smooth animations, as well as social login buttons for Google and Apple. And finally, we're also going to be having a responsive design that looks great on any device. So let's start building. So here I am on VS Code, and then to start a project you can just do Ctrl-Shift-P and then start a new Flutter project. So I'm going to be starting an empty Flutter project, and then I'm going to be calling this Login UI. And then this, we're going to be creating a project just called Login UI. Now we're going to be heading on to our main.dart file, where we're going to be starting all our main projects. Okay, I'm going to be zooming in so that it's easier for you to see. And within the home file, we're just going to be replacing this with our login file. So this is what we're going to be creating later on. So I'm just going to be calling it login page, and then we're going to be calling that function. So within the lib file, we're just going to be creating a file called login UI.dart. And now once we've created that, we can get started. And then for this, we're going to be calling our login state. We're going to be establishing a stateful widget and be calling it login page. Okay, now we've created this, we have to create our state class, and for this we're going to be creating all the controllers as well as variables that we will need. So within this, we're just going to be creating final form key. Okay, so now I'm going to be explaining each of these parts. So first of all, we're going to be starting with form key, which is crucial for form validation. Furthermore, it also gives us access to the form's validation state. And the next, the email controller. The email controller as well as the password controller, they both help manage text input values. And then after that, the is password visible helps us control whether the password is shown or hidden. And then remember me, it just tracks the checkbox state. And finally, is loading is established as false, which shows the loading spinner during the login during the login process. So now we're going to be creating a validation function, which is really important for the user experience. So under this override, we're just going to have and then I'm just going to go back to our original main.dart file and just import this package. Sorry, import the login UI.dart. Okay, and then we have no errors on this. So here in this function that we've created over here, so essentially what's happening is at first we check if the field is empty, and then we use regular expressions to validate the email format, and if the validation passes, then we return null. This tells Flutter that the input is valid. Okay, now we're going to be using the password validation, which is much simpler, but which is also really important. And now this validate password ensures that when the user enters a password, there's at least 6 characters long, and you can make this more complex by checking for special characters, numbers, etc. Now we're going to be building the UI structure, and now let's start with the overall structure. Okay, so now for the key points that we have over here, safe area ensures that our content doesn't overlap with system's UI, and then the single child scroll view also ensures that we make pages scrollable on smaller screens, as well as the center and column ensures our vertical layout. So now we're going to also be adding our app logo section, which creates a beautiful floating icon with a rounded corners that uses border radius circular 20, as well as a subtle shadow that gives it depth. And finally, it also adds a blue color that matches our overall theme. Okay, now we're going to be continuing on with the form fields. So I'm using the text form field to ensure that it integrates perfectly with the form validation. So within this text form field, I'm going to be ensuring that we have our email controller as well as our input decoration for our emails, so that it allows the user to enter their email, as well as a border radius around the overall email thing. So now following that, I'm going to be continuing on after the form field, where we're going to be creating a const sized box, height of 20. And now we're going to be doing the same with our password field. So for our password text form field, we have to ensure that it is 6 characters long, and I'm going to add it right here, right after a const sized box. So now once I've added that, the keyboard type, the text input, which over here for the email address, it shows the email keyboard on the mobile phone. Furthermore, it's also the validator email ensures that it connects to our validation function. And then the prefix icon adds an email icon inside the field. And then the custom border radius makes it look more modern. So for the password field, it is very similar and has a special suffix icon. And then this toggle lets the users show and hide their password, which is a great UX feature that becomes standard in modern apps. So now under this, we're going to be adding some interactive elements. So first, we're going to be creating a remember me checkbox. So in order to do that, we're just going to be using row, and then this is going to be involving, so this is just in this section we're going to have forget me as well as forget password is clicked. So over here we're just going to have row, and then in our main axis alignment we're going to have a remember me checkbox as well as forget password is clicked. So whenever they click the forget password, then it's just going to say forget password is clicked. And now under this we're going to be having our size box. So over here we're just going to be having const sized box with a height of 24. And then here we're going to be having our login button. And then I want to reiterate, going back up here, the double question mark over here ensures that the operator provides a fallback value if the value is null. And then now for the login button, we're going to be ensuring that is loading is true, and this is when the button is disabled when it is on pressed. And we also show a white loading spinner instead of just text. And then apart from that, we're also going to give immediate feedback that something is happening. So in order for this to happen, we're just going to have our size box. So under this, we're going to be having our size box, and it's going to have our login button over here. And now I'm going to be continuing on to handling the login logic. So in order for that to happen, we're going to move down below our container over here, and then we're going to create another const size box with our height of 24. And then here we're going to be handling our login functionality. So in order to do that, we're just going to be under the container, we're going to have our size box, and then we're going to copy paste this over here. And we're also going to have our logic for the Google login as well as our Apple login. So right under the row, we're going to be having another const size box over here, and then this ensures that the row, and then in this we have our Google login clicked. So we're going to have an icon of the Google icon, and then we're also going to have a icon for the Apple logo. And then this just ensures that it looks more polished, and then you can add functionality features for this later on. And then now right under this, we're also going to be having our we're going to be adding our don't have an account as well as sign up clicked, as well as sign up functionality that you can add later onto your app. So here we're just going to have size box with the height of 32. And then within this sized box, we're just going to have a row which involves a sign up link, and then you can add the functionality for this later on in your app. So as you can see over here, we have our row, and then within this we just have don't have an account, and then when they click on it, this says sign up is clicked. And over here for your future projects, instead of saying sign up is clicked, you can redirect it to a sign up page, for example. And I'm going to include another tutorial in the future on how to create a professional sign up page. So as you can see, we have an error over here, and I'm going to be fixing that real quick. Oh, it's just this comma over here, yeah. And now we have a series of errors over here in our login page. So I think all we need to do is just connect our we just need to like match our parentheses as well as our curly braces over here. So as long as we do that, that should be fine. And then here we have our don't have an account, and there you have it. We have a professional login page, and then this allows you to like add, and then for future projects, that what you can do is that you can add biometric authentication, and you can also implement proper backend integration. Furthermore, you can also add forgot like password flow, and you can create a sign-up page with similar designs and add form at the like animations or micro interactions. And then for this complete code is available in our GitHub, which you can check out in the description below. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments. And maybe I'll include another tutorial for a sign-up page. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.